US employers announced layoffs of 43,000 jobs in February. Now, that's down 55% from last month, where over 108,000 jobs were terminated, according to the most recent Challenger and Gray report. Now, it's actually down 72% from February of last year. Last year, guys, there were 172,000 layoffs announced in the month of February. So the trend here looks like, well, we're seeing less jobs being terminated, which is good news. But we do need to look at who's getting laid off and why they're getting laid off. That is the key, guys. Are you going to be stable in the economy moving forward? Are you going to be able to remain relevant, respected, and financially free? What's coming for us down the pipeline? How do we prepare? And we'll get to that in just a moment. I want to take a quick look at what are the hiring trends. So the firings are starting to slow down a little bit, but what about hiring? Well, companies announced hiring plans of just under 13,000 new jobs in February, which is actually up 140% from January, where only 5,300 new jobs were announced. But, and here's the big story here, the hiring is down 63% from February of last year. In February of last year, over 34,000 jobs were announced. So what are we looking at here? What's the overall bottom line? Well, the February trend is that there's a slowdown of firing and a slowdown of hiring. Now, if you have a steady income and you're secure in your job, at least you feel like you're secure in your job, that's probably good news. But if you're looking for work, if you're a recent college graduate, if you were one of the 1.1 million people that were laid off last year, well, it's probably not good news. And we're going to cover some different strategies and some trends that are happening, specifically around artificial intelligence and AI, that you really can't ignore, that I think is an opportunity for you and for me to capitalize on some of the opportunities that are out there. But again, we'll get to that in just a moment. I want to just briefly cover who's getting laid off and what the reasons are, because this is important. It's not enough to just know a lot of people are getting laid off. A lot of companies aren't hiring right now. We have to look at why. Why? What is let's look a little bit more closely at some of those trends. So tech during the month of February was the most impacted, with over 11,000 layoffs. That's actually 33,000 layoffs year to date, which is up 51% from last year. And we look at those 11,000 layoffs, the big, there's always like a big one inside there, and Block is one of the big layoffs. They announced they're laying off 4,000 employees, and we just actually covered that a couple days ago. I'll post a link to the video there. Block is actually laying off 4,000 employees, and they're saying it's because of AI and AI agents, which is pretty astounding. Not unexpected, but astounding. Anyway, we'll post a link to that video up there. But looking at tech, according to Challenger, quote, tech is responding to a number of pressures right now. AI is the big story, but there are also global regulatory concerns, a slowdown in digital advertising driven by tariffs and economic uncertainty, and higher costs to both employ workers and access funding, forcing companies to make difficult decisions. Now, again, this won't be a surprise to subscribers of the channel. We've actually covered all these topics, and even just recently we covered the impact that funding and uncertainty is having as a whole. One thing that we're seeing is a lot of big tech companies are over-leveraged, let's say. They're making these huge commitments, tens of billions of dollars into these AI infrastructure projects, and something has to give. Something has to give. And a lot of times where that give is we're going to restructure, we're going to become more, quote, efficient and autonomous, and that ends up saying, okay, well, one of the largest expenses in our organization is our people. We'll clear out people in order to free up capital for the tech build out. And again, banks are starting to kind of slow down and say, well, when are we going to see a return on investment for all this tech spending, for all this AI spending? So it's harder to get the loans. They've already got these huge investment needs. There's this race to the top when it comes to AI infrastructure and tech and who's going to win that race. So basically every company feels like they need to invest in AI. They need to build out the AI. The banks are slowing down the investments. They've already committed. What do? You got to clean house. You got to clean house. Next up was education, with 5,400 layoffs announced, which it sounds like is pretty typical for this time of year. Also, you're seeing a migration out of big cities, which is reducing the number of teaching budget there. Industrial manufacturing saw 4,100 cuts this year. And the big one is transportation. This year, there's been 3,200 cuts. And that's up 872% from last year. So big cuts. Now, I will say that a lot of this is going to be due to UPS's big layoff. And we covered this in a video. UPS announced they're going to be laying off 30,000 jobs. And that was a direct result of losing some accounts with Amazon. So they laid off 30,000 people. We covered that in detail. I'll post a link to that video here because there's kind of a lot to go through when it comes to what's happening with UPS and transportation. Now, Challenger also predicts that the conflict in Iran is likely to impact transportation jobs even further as oil costs rise and supply chains are disrupted. Tough to completely predict that. But, you've got the Strait of Hormuz, which has some issues. Certainly Iran, a big producer of oil. I'm not going to get into all the geopolitics because there's so many moving parts. But if there's one thing we could say, there's a lot of uncertainty when it comes to transportation. Healthcare products, 19,000 jobs ended this year, which is actually the highest since 2021. So we're seeing a lot of those jobs being laid off. It's the highest since 2021. So why are the cuts? What is the reason? Why are these companies firing people? Why are they laying them off? What are the most cited reasons? And I think there's some interesting trends here that we need to cover. So first off, which was closing. Store closings accounted for 10,736 layoffs. Market and economic conditions came in second at 10,114 layoffs. Restructuring, 9,146 layoffs. Cost cutting, 5,636. And then AI comes in number 5 for the 5th most common reason for terminating employees. So with AI, we've got 4,680 layoffs. Now, here's some interesting numbers that I was able to pull from a couple of different reports from Challenger. So that number is responsible for 10% of the layoffs in February. So during the month of February, 10% of workers were laid off because of AI, okay? And AI was cited as the cut. So far in 2026, that's 8% total. So if you look at the year of 2026, 8% of people that lost their job, the reason given was AI, okay? In 2025, that number was 5%. And from 2023 to 2024, that number was 2.2%. So what are we seeing here is that over the past few years, the number of people losing their jobs because of AI is increasing according to the companies that are reporting to various governmental agencies and according to this Challenger and Gray report. Again, receipts and references are in the comments. And you might have thoughts like, well, we actually think that it's not because of AI. They're claiming it's AI to get a stock bump, or they're saying it's AI because it makes them look better. It kind of hides some of the problems that they have as an organization. And that's fine. You can put those comments below. I'd love to read those. If it's really good, I will pin you. I've pinned people in the past. I'll pin people in the future if you come with good information. But I think this is a really interesting trend. And I'm just going to repeat it again for the people in the back because this is important. People say that AI is not replacing jobs. Well, here is some specific data from Challenger and Gray that contradicts that. From 2023 to 2025, for that 2-year period, 2.2% of people were laid off due to AI. In 2025, 5%, and so far in 2026, 8%. We're seeing a trend upward. More people are being laid off because of AI. Do you think that's going to stop? Do you think that at a certain point we're going to say, AI is just going to stop replacing people? AI's, it's peaked. I don't think that's what's going to happen, personally. I think the AI is going to get better and more effective, and people like myself that are really effective at learning and executing and iterating and trying different tools, people like you probably. If you're watching this video, you're in the top 1%. If it's people like us that are going to have a competitive advantage. At least that's the way that I see it, because we're going to be using AI. We're going to be effective with it. We're going to be able to speak AI literacy. I think it's really important because, listen, at the end of the day, here's kind of the big story. There's a lot of uncertainty in the world right now. You've got tariffs, you've got wars, you've got big tech spending and artificial intelligence. There's a lot going on. And what we do see here, as far as in the February report goes, we see that layoffs are slowing and hiring is slowing. But there is a much bigger story here. Companies are freezing hiring while investing in automation and AI instead of adding workers. And there's a lot of uncertainty, as I mentioned. But when it comes to being relevant, respected, and financially free, which is what this channel is all about, it's as men, we're the crux of our families, guys. We're the cruxes of our families, of our communities, of our churches, of our businesses. Like, people rely on us to remain relevant, respected, and financially free. UBI ain't gonna get it done, boys. People rely on us too much, right? And with that being said, there's things that are outside of our control. I can't control what's happening in the Middle East. I just can't. Like, I can vote, okay? And I will vote. But, you know, that doesn't, like, I can't control what happens in Washington. What I can control is what I do today. And that's what I kind of preach, guys, is focus on what you can control. Focusing on what you can't control does you no good. And what we can control, what I can control, are the tools, the tactics, the strategies, the people I surround myself with. I just joined a business leaders group. I'm getting on phone calls. I'm only joining tasks with organizations that I'm learning from and I have tools to access. And I'll expand on that in just a moment here. But I want to share some insights from a conversation I had yesterday with the CTO of a SaaS company that I do marketing for. And there's a couple big takeaways here. And the first of which is that, we were kind of talking about Claude and AI and how it's impacting the workforce. And, different strategies that we can employ, that we're employing, that we can also execute to gain a competitive advantage. So we're a pretty small startup. We've increased from 3 to 3.5, 3.7 million ARR over the past several months. And so we're growing, we're lean, we're trying to get a competitive advantage, and AI is a way to get there. So anyway, I was talking to him. He's very sharp guy. He's a software engineer. He's kind of at the top level. He's been doing it for a while. He's exited a couple companies. He said, Mark, I don't really write code anymore. And guys, we talked about this in a video yesterday. He's like, Mark, I don't really write code anymore. I use Claude to write code, and I find that it can write it much faster, not quite as good as me, but it does a really good job. And then, he'll send it over the programmer to review, and the developer kind of looks at where it sits in the full stack. So anyway, there are some quality control measures in place to make sure that the code works, right? Regardless, he said, Mark, I don't write code anymore. And that has impacted the way that I look at hiring my next employee. He said, at first, a couple months ago, I was looking at who am I gonna need to hire next? And I was thinking about hiring someone that could write code. So I could say, hey, let's take this busy work off of my plate and write the code. And he said, well, now I don't actually need that. The problem that I have as the engineer is my brain gets tired, basically, because I'm doing all this high level work. I'm doing all this big strategy and putting all the pieces together. I'm not writing code anymore. And I'm not an engineer. I'm not a software developer. I don't write code. I've talked about this before. I do some vibe coding with AI and stuff. But the point I'm trying to make here is that there's a new set of problems that he needs solved. He doesn't need to hire someone to write code for him. He has AI to do that. What he needs is someone to help take some of the higher level, we'll call it developer, engineering type of tasks off of his plate. And maybe AI will get there. We'll see. But regardless, that's what he's looking to hire right now, okay? And I think this is gonna start to manifest across all platforms. And I'll kind of expand on that here. So we were kind of talking about, the way I saw us moving forward with marketing and, where I wanted to put my time and energy. And I was like, listen, the only kind of projects I want to be involved with right now are projects that are interesting. I see that there's room for growth, and that is involving and using different AI tools and tactics. And I kind of mentioned these are a few different ideas that I have. Give me some budget. I want to use this tool for this tool for this tool for this. Hook me up with some budget, and I want to go to town. And he's like, sure, cool, done. Here's the budget. And this is kind of brings us back to the big point here, guys. Moving forward into 2026, this is my mindset, and I'm going to speak to you because I think this should be your mindset too. You should not be taking on tasks that don't involve learning. You should not be taking on projects or clients that don't require learning new tools and new skills, because what's proliferating across any professional white-collar job is AI. It is AI agents. And I'm not telling you to go out and download, OpenClaw and start automating everything. I'm not saying that. What I am saying is talk to your clients, talk to your bosses, do some research, talk to someone who's already in this field and say, hey, this is what I'm thinking about. This is the budget I need. This is what I expect the return on investment will be. Can I get the budget? Yes or no? And let me tell you this, if you're in an organization that's not gonna let you learn and grow and test new tools, I think you need to kind of consider looking at other opportunities. That's me, because what we're gonna see, I believe, over the next few years is we're gonna see those unemployment numbers for people getting replaced by AI to go from 2% to 5% to 8% to 10% to 15%. We're gonna start to see that increase. Understanding, having AI literacy, understanding how these tools can help you be more effective is gonna be really important. Not because what's gonna happen here, and I'm not gonna get into this in full in today's video because I'm going a little bit long, is companies are firing people because of whatever reasons, efficiency, AI, etc. But what they're finding is that, oops, we fired too many. We need to rehire back. And I promise you, they're gonna be looking for people that are using these tools. I've discussed this on the channel before. If you've been a subscriber, you'll know this is where I stand. If I'm potentially hiring someone as an assistant or to work with me on a project, one of the first questions I ask is, how are you using AI to get better results? How are you using AI to be more efficient? And if they say, I don't use AI, the answer is, I can't hire you. And I think that a lot of companies moving forward are going to adapt that. Whether it's because they're true believers, or whether because they see the buddy they went to high school with is crushing it with AI, or someone they follow online is talking about AI. Employers are gonna be looking for this more and more often. You cannot deny it. It's just the facts. It's just the facts. Can you look me in the face and really tell me, and you might not be a full believer in AI, that's fine, but can you look me in the face and say that everyone around you is not talking about AI. Everyone around you is not concerned with AI. Everyone around you is not implementing new tools. If you say yes, then you probably need to find a new circle. But regardless, I want to kind of close it down by here as we kind of bring this, as we kind of land this ship, guys. The reality is that when we look at what's happening in the jobs report, the firings are slowing down for February. Hirings are slowing down for February. Moving forward, the reason people are being laid off due to AI is increasing if we look at the previous 3.5 to 4 years. What does the future look like? What does the future look like? What impact, what are you learning now that's gonna make you more valuable to your organization? What can you do now that's gonna help companies solve different problems? As we saw with our software engineer, the CTO at our organization, he needs a different problem solved now. The problem that he thought he was gonna need solved, he doesn't need solved. How are you gonna adapt to solve those new problems? That is the big question, guys. All right, appreciate you watching. If you enjoyed today's video, smash like. Check out yesterday's video as well, where we talk about a company, WiseTech, that just fired 2,000 employees because AI can write the code for them. They go together, guys. Watch yesterday's video, and I'll catch you there. All right, see you later. Peace.